The Seattle rain pattered against the windows of our Lake Washington home as I stared at the credit card statement in my hand. Another $4,300 at Nordstrom. Third time this month. I ran my fingers through my hair and took a deep breath, the knot in my stomach tightening. This wasn't about the money. I had plenty. My construction company had grown from me and a used pickup truck to 50 employees and multiple crews working across Washington state. No, this was about respect, or rather, the complete lack of it. Jackson. Melissa's voice echoed through our vaulted ceilings. Did you see my new bags? Savannah said they're absolutely essential for summer. She descended our staircase like she was walking a runway, her blonde hair bouncing with each step, designer dress clinging to her slim figure. The same beauty that had captivated me 5 years ago at that charity gala. I looked up, forcing a smile. They're nice. How much did they set us back? She waved her hand dismissively. Does it matter? It's an investment in our image. She walked past me to the kitchen island, the scent of her $400 perfume lingering. Your clients expect a certain lifestyle from someone of your position. I'm just making sure we deliver. I watched as she poured herself a glass of the Cabernet I'd been saving, a $300 bottle from a client who owned a vineyard. She didn't even like red wine. Actually, it does matter, I said quietly. Melissa rolled her eyes. God, you're becoming so boring with all this budget talk. You used to be fun before you started counting pennies. I've always counted pennies. That's how I built this life, I replied, gesturing around our 5,000 square foot home. The difference is you used to at least pretend to care about our financial future. She snorted. Our financial future is fine unless you mess it up. Just keep doing what you do, and I'll handle making us look good. She took a sip of wine, grimaced, and dumped the rest down the sink. This tastes like vinegar. We need better wine. I bit my tongue. This wasn't the moment. Not yet. A memory flashed in my mind. Melissa on our first date, admiring my calloused hands and saying how sexy it was that I built things, created value with my own two hands. Where had that woman gone? Or had she ever existed at all? 3 days later, we hosted a dinner party for some of my biggest clients and their wives. Melissa had insisted on hiring a private chef and serving Dom Perignon. By midnight, when our guests were leaving, I estimated the evening had cost nearly $6,000. Great party, man, said Derek Williams, one of my biggest commercial clients, as I walked him and his wife to the door. You've done well for yourself. Thanks, Derek. Looking forward to breaking ground on the new office park next month. His wife, Emma, a pediatrician who worked 50 hours a week, hugged me goodbye. Lovely evening, Jackson. You and Melissa should come to our place next time. Nothing this fancy, but we'd love to return the hospitality. After they left, I returned to the living room where Melissa sat with her 3 closest friends, Savannah, Brittany, and Tiffany, women I collectively referred to as the vultures in private. They were all on their second marriages or divorces, and they all lived off their husbands' or ex-husbands' money. God, Emma's dress was so last season, Brittany was saying as I walked in. And did you see her shoes? Definitely knockoffs. She's a doctor, I interjected. She probably doesn't have time to keep up with fashion trends between saving children's lives. Melissa shot me a warning look. Emma's sweet, just simple. She turned back to her friends. Anyway, ladies, who's up for Aspen next weekend? I found this amazing chalet with its own chef. I froze. This was the first I'd heard of any trip to Aspen. We have my parents' anniversary on Saturday, I reminded her, and I have that big meeting with Seattle Development Group on Friday. Melissa laughed, the sound like broken glass. Oh, don't worry about that, baby. I already told your mom we can't make it, and you can move your boring meeting, right? She turned to her friends. Jackson's so cute when he thinks his schedule matters. The women tittered with laughter. I stood there, humiliation burning through me. Another round, I asked tightly, picking up the empty champagne bottle. Yes, and don't get the cheap stuff this time, Melissa said, not even looking at me. Jackson's my personal ATM, ladies. He doesn't look like much, but he keeps the accounts full. Their laughter followed me to the kitchen. I gripped the counter, knuckles white, as fury coursed through me. 5 years of building a life with this woman, of believing we were partners, of thinking she saw me as more than a bank account. What a fool I'd been. I popped another bottle and returned to the living room, smiling as if nothing were wrong. But inside, something had broken for good. Here's to successful men and the women who spend their money, Savannah said, raising her glass. The others clinked glasses, Melissa's eyes catching mine with a challenge in them. I raised my glass too. To spending other people's money, I said pleasantly. Enjoy it while it lasts. Melissa's eyes narrowed, but her smile remained fixed. She didn't believe I'd ever do anything about it. She was wrong. That night after her friends had left and Melissa had passed out from too much champagne, I stood in our bedroom looking at her sprawled across our California king bed. Her makeup was smeared, her expensive dress crumpled on the floor. I thought back to our wedding day, when I'd believed with all my heart that we would build something meaningful together. What happened to us? I whispered, though I knew she couldn't hear me. Part of me wanted to shake her awake, to confront her about the ATM comment, to demand that she explain when exactly I transformed from husband to cash dispenser in her eyes. Instead, I grabbed my pillow and went to sleep in the guest room. The distance between us now measured in more than just feet. The next morning, while Melissa was still sleeping off the champagne, I made 3 important calls: to my attorney, to my financial advisor, and to my bank. By noon, I had opened a new private account, transferred my business holdings to a protected trust, and started the process of documenting our finances for what might come next. I wasn't rushing into divorce, not yet, but I needed to protect myself from whatever Melissa might do when she realized I was taking control back. When she finally emerged around 1 p.m., wearing silk pajamas and dark sunglasses, I was in my home office reviewing contracts. "God, my head is killing me," she moaned, collapsing on the leather sofa across from my desk. "Can you make me one of those vitamin smoothies? And call the spa. I need a massage today." I looked up from my computer. "There's Advil in the bathroom cabinet, and you can call the spa yourself. I'm working." She pushed her sunglasses up, eyes narrowing. "What's wrong with you today?" "Nothing. Just busy." "Well, I need your credit card. Mine was declined at Nordstrom yesterday, which was humiliating. I think it hit the limit." I nodded. "It did. $25,000 in 2 weeks will do that. So give me yours. I still need to pick up those shoes I was looking at." I turned back to my computer. "No." The silence stretched between us. I could feel her staring at me, processing what had just happened. "Excuse me." Her voice had dropped an octave. "I said no. Your card will reset in 3 days when the billing cycle ends. You can wait." She stood up, anger cutting through her hangover. "I don't wait for things, Jackson. You know that. Give me your damn card." I finally looked up at her, calm and steady. "Or what, Melissa? What will you do if I don't hand over my money to you? Leave. Threaten me. Go ahead." She blinked, taken aback by my directness. Then her face transformed into a cold mask I'd seen more and more often lately. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly. "I made you who you are. Without me, you'd still be showing up to client meetings in those pathetic, off-the-rack suits, looking like the nobody you really are." I leaned back in my chair. "Is that what you tell yourself? That you built me? I had my company for 3 years before I met you. I bought this house before our first date. What exactly did you build, Melissa, other than an impressive collection of designer handbags?" Her face flushed crimson. "You bastard. You'd be nothing without me. Nothing." "I guess we're about to find out," I said calmly, "because things are going to change around here, starting today. You want money? Earn it. Like I did. Like most people do." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a framed photo fell from the wall and shattered. It was our wedding photo, the glass splintering across our smiling faces. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. 20 minutes later, I heard her car screech out of the driveway. I picked up my phone and made another call to a security company. By the end of the day, I had cameras installed throughout the house and a new monitoring system for all my accounts. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being prepared. As the technician was finishing the installation, my phone rang. It was my father. "Hey, Dad." "Jackson?" His voice had the same steady strength it always did. "Your mother told me you're not coming to the anniversary party." "That true?" I sighed. "No, it's not. Melissa told Mom that without checking with me. Of course I'll be there." Trouble in paradise, he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. You could say that. Can I come by the cabin tomorrow? I could use some advice. Door's always open for you, son. Bring your fishing gear. The lake's been generous this week. Meshum. Melissa didn't come home that night, or the next. According to her Instagram, which I rarely checked but now found myself scrutinizing, she was staying at Savannah's beach house. The post showed them drinking margaritas and taking selfies with captions like "Who needs men?" and "Freedom feels so good." I used the time to meet with Harold, my father, at his cabin in the Cascade Mountains. At 65, he was still as tough as the nails he'd hammered during his 40 years as a carpenter before retiring. He taught me everything I knew about construction, about business, and about standing my ground. As we sat on the dock, fishing lines cast into the still water, I told him everything. The ATM comment, the spending, the contempt Melissa seemed to have developed for me, and the life I'd built. You sure you want to go this route, son? He asked as we sat on his porch, looking out at the pine trees swaying in the breeze. Marriages hit rough patches. Your mother and I had some doozies. This isn't a rough patch, Dad. She sees me as an ATM, not a husband. I took a swig of my beer. Mom never treated you like that, he sighed. No, she didn't. Your mother was a partner in every sense. He looked at me, his eyes wise and steady. So what's your plan? I've secured the assets for now, opened new accounts. I'm giving her a chance to course correct, to remember we're supposed to be a team, but I'm not hopeful. And if she doesn't, I stared out at the mountains, then I'm done. I won't be used anymore. My father nodded slowly. You know what the military taught me. Control the situation or become its victim. Sounds like you're taking control? He clapped me on the shoulder. Whatever happens, you've always got a place here if you need it. Thanks, Dad. He cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the emotion of the moment. Your mother wanted me to remind you. Anniversary dinner is at 6, not 7. Don't be late. I smiled. I wouldn't dare. As I drove back to Seattle, I felt a resolve hardening in me. My parents had shown me what a real partnership looked like. Mutual respect, shared goals, each contributing in their own way. I deserved that too. And if Melissa couldn't or wouldn't be that partner, I needed to accept that reality and move on. When I returned home that evening, Melissa's car was in the driveway. I steeled myself before walking in. Inside, I found her sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. Oh, you're home, she said without looking up. We need to talk about your little tantrum the other day. My tantrum. I set down my keys. You're the one who stormed out and disappeared for 2 days. I needed space from your negativity. She finally looked at me, her expression calculated. Look, I've been thinking. Maybe you're right that we should be more careful with spending for a while. That new Watson contract fell through, right? We should tighten our belts until something better comes along. I was momentarily stunned. The Watson contract was confidential, something I'd only mentioned in a private meeting with my project manager yesterday. I hadn't told Melissa. How did you know about Watson? I asked carefully. Her eyes flickered. You must have mentioned it. I didn't, she shrugged. Then maybe I overheard you on the phone. Whatever. The point is, I understand we need to be careful, and I'm willing to compromise. I studied her face. This sudden reasonableness wasn't like her. Something was off. That's good to hear, I said slowly. What kind of compromise did you have in mind? Well, I canceled my plans for the New York shopping trip next week, and I thought instead of buying that new Mercedes I wanted, I could just lease it. She smiled sweetly. See? Compromise. I almost laughed. That's not exactly what I meant by change, Melissa. Her smile faltered. Well, what do you want from me? I'm trying here. I want a partner, not someone who treats me like a walking wallet. I moved closer to her, and I want to know how you really found out about the Watson contract. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. I told you, I overheard something. God, you're being paranoid. Am I? Because it seems like someone's been accessing my business email. Strange, since only 2 people have that password, me and my assistant, and Diane would never betray my confidence. Melissa's face hardened. Are you accusing me of something? Should I be? We stared at each other across the kitchen island, the pretense of her compromise evaporating between us. You know what? I don't need this interrogation, she snapped, heading for the door. I'm going to Savannah's. Before you go, I said, my voice even, you should know I've changed all the passwords. Email, banking, everything. And I've frozen the joint credit cards. She whirled around, eyes wide. You did what? You heard me. From now on, you'll use your own money, the allowance I deposit in your personal account. It's more than generous. $5,000 a month should cover your actual needs. 5,000! She shrieked. That barely covers my beauty treatments. What about shopping? Trips with my friends? The country club fees? Get a job, I suggested. You always talk about being an interior designer. Time to actually design something. Her face contorted with rage. You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. And I'm your husband, not your bank. That's the point you seem to be missing. She stormed toward me, finger pointed at my chest. You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you can just cut me off? I know things about your business, Jackson. Things your clients wouldn't like to hear. Her voice dropped to a threatening whisper. Remember that bribe you paid to that city inspector for the Westridge project? How do you think that would look if it got out? The accusation hit me like a physical blow. What the hell are you talking about? I've never bribed anyone in my life. Every permit we've ever pulled has been legitimate. She smiled, a cold, calculating expression. Maybe. But would your reputation survive even the accusation, the investigation, the doubt? I stared at her, seeing for the first time the extent of her willingness to hurt me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about destruction. Are you actually threatening to make false allegations against my business? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. I'm just pointing out that marriages are complicated. Lots of secrets. Lots of leverage on both sides. She adjusted her purse strap. Think about that before you go to bed tonight in our very expensive house that I decorated. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Through the window, I watched her peel out of the driveway, nearly hitting the mailbox. I poured myself a scotch and pulled up the security camera app on my phone. Something told me I'd need those recordings sooner rather than later. But more importantly, I needed to understand just how far Melissa was willing to go. The woman who just threatened to fabricate criminal allegations against me was a stranger, or perhaps the real person who'd been hiding behind a beautiful mask all along. The next morning, my business partner, Lucas Mitchell, called me at 7 a.m. Jackson, did you try to wire $250,000 to a personal account last night? I sat up in bed, instantly alert. No. Why? I got a notification from the bank. Someone tried to transfer funds from our business account, but it got flagged because it was outside business hours and to an unrecognized account. The bank blocked it. Jesus, I muttered. I'm coming to the office. Don't do anything until I get there. An hour later, Lucas and I sat in the bank manager's office, reviewing the attempted transaction. The request came from your email account, Mr. Harper. The manager, a serious woman named Andrea Reynolds, explained. But our system flagged it because the IP address was unusual and the transfer pattern didn't match your history. Can you tell where the request came from? I asked. She nodded. A residential IP address in Bellevue. She wrote it down and slid the paper across to me. Does this mean anything to you? I recognized the address immediately. Savannah's beach house. Yes, I said grimly, it does. After getting the bank to lock down all my accounts with additional security measures, I drove straight to the police station. Attempted wire fraud wasn't something I could ignore, even if my own wife was behind it. Detective Rachel Grant was a no-nonsense woman with short dark hair and piercing eyes that seemed to cut through bullshit on contact. Let me get this straight, she said after I had explained the situation. You believe your wife tried to transfer $250,000 from your business account without permission? I have evidence, I said, sliding across my phone with the emails and bank notifications. And the transfer was initiated from her friend's house, where she's been staying. Detective Grant reviewed the information. This is certainly suspicious, but it's not conclusive. The IP address proves the attempt came from that location, but not who made it. Noi. I have more, I said, pulling out a USB drive. Security camera footage from my home office shows Melissa going through my desk 3 days ago, photographing documents, and writing down what appears to be passwords from my personal notebook. The detective's eyebrows rose as she took the drive. That's more substantial. We'll need to review this and possibly speak with your wife. In the meantime, I suggest you continue to secure your accounts and perhaps consult with an attorney. Already done, I assured her. And detective, my wife has friends with resources. If she gets wind of this investigation, before you're ready to move, evidence might disappear. She nodded, understanding. We'll be discreet, Mr. Harper. On my way out of the station, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Jackson Harper? A woman's voice asked. Speaking. Who's this? My name is Karen Davis from Northwest Trust Bank. I'm calling because someone just attempted to access your safety deposit box using what appears to be a falsified power of attorney document. My blood ran cold. Was it a blonde woman? About 5 feet 6 inches? Designer clothes? I can't give you that information over the phone for security reasons, but the person was turned away and we've flagged your account for additional verification going forward. Thank you, I said. I'll be there within the hour to review everything. The pieces were falling into place. Melissa wasn't just angry about the cut in funds. She was actively trying to steal from me. And she wasn't working alone. The falsified power of attorney suggested someone with legal knowledge was helping her. Savannah's second ex-husband was an attorney. This wasn't just a marital spat anymore. This was war. 3 days passed without contact from Melissa. I hired a private security firm to monitor the house and change all the locks. My attorney, Benjamin Walsh, filed for an emergency hearing to freeze our assets pending divorce proceedings based on the evidence of attempted fraud. This is unusual, Ben told me as we left the courthouse. Usually it's the wife seeking protection from financial abuse, not the husband. Times are changing, I said wryly. When's the hearing? Monday morning. Judge Harmon is fair but traditional. We need to be airtight on this. As we walked to the parking lot, a familiar car screeched to a halt beside us, Melissa's white Range Rover. She stepped out, looking immaculate as always in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than some of my employees made in a month. Jackson, she called, her voice sugary sweet. We need to talk, honey. Ben stepped in front of me. Mrs. Harper, as your husband's attorney, I advise you that any communication should go through proper legal channels. I understand you've been served with the emergency hearing notice. She ignored him, focusing on me. Jackson, this is ridiculous. Whatever you think I did, we can work this out. Remember our vows, for better or worse? I remember, I said coldly. I also remember to love and to cherish, which doesn't include trying to steal from me or forge documents. Her face darkened. I don't know what you're talking about. I was upset, yes. I went to stay with a friend. That's not a crime. The attempted wire transfer from my business account is trying to access my safety deposit box with fake documents. We have the evidence, Melissa. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw raw panic in her eyes. Then she composed herself. You're making a big mistake, she said, her voice hardening. I have friends, Jackson. Powerful friends. You think you can just cut me off and throw me away. I made you. I created your image, got you into the right clubs, introduced you to the right people. You've got it backward, I replied calmly. I earned everything I have. You just spent it. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You think a jury will believe you over me? A big, intimidating man against a poor, frightened wife. I'll tell them you abused me, financially, emotionally, physically. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky if they let you keep the clothes on your back. I felt Ben tense beside me, but I remained steady. You're forgetting something, Melissa. I have cameras in the house. Every room except the bathrooms. Every conversation, every action, all recorded for the past 2 weeks, including you bragging to Savannah about how you were going to, quote, bleed him dry and leave him with nothing, unquote. The color drained from her face. You're lying. That's illegal. Not in my own home it isn't. Not in Washington State. Single-party consent, remember? She stepped back, her composure cracking. This isn't over, she hissed before getting back in her car and speeding away. Ben let out a low whistle. Well, that helps our case. Please tell me you really do have those recordings. I nodded grimly. Every word. That evening, as I was reviewing documents for the hearing, someone pounded on my front door. I checked the security camera feed on my phone and saw Melissa, clearly intoxicated, swaying on the porch. "Open the door, Jackson," she shouted loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "This is still my house, too." I hesitated, then opened the door, but remained in the doorway, blocking her entry. "You're drunk, Melissa. Go back to Savannah's." She tried to push past me. "I need my things, my jewelry, my clothes." Her words slurred together. "You can't keep me from my own property." "I'm not keeping you from anything that's legitimately yours," I said firmly, "but you're not coming in like this. Call my attorney tomorrow, and we'll arrange a time for you to collect your personal items with a witness present." "A witness?" she spat. "Like I'm some criminal. You're the criminal. Emotional abuse, financial abuse." She was shouting now, putting on a show for anyone who might be watching. Suddenly, she lunged forward and slapped me hard across the face. The sting was sharp, unexpected. "Hit me back," she whispered, her eyes wild. "Give me something to show the cops." I stepped back, keeping my hands visible. "I'm not playing this game, Melissa. Go home before you make things worse for yourself." "Worse for myself? You have no idea what worse looks like." She fumbled in her purse and pulled out her phone. "One call to the Seattle Times about the famous Jackson Harper and his construction company's shady permit practices." "There are no shady practices," I interrupted, "and false accusations are defamation. Added to the fraud, you're looking at serious legal consequences." Something in my tone must have cut through her drunken haze. She stared at me, suddenly uncertain. "You wouldn't press charges against your own wife." "Try me," I said quietly. "You crossed the line when you tried to steal from my company. That affects my employees, my partners, not just me. There's no coming back from that." Her face crumpled, the mask of righteous anger falling away. For a moment, I glimpsed real fear in her eyes. "Jackson," she whispered, her voice breaking, "what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to live without all this." "That's the saddest part," I replied. "You never tried to figure out how to live with me, just with my money." I closed the door gently but firmly, leaving her standing on the porch. Through the security camera, I watched as she sank to her knees, sobbing. A minute later, a car pulled up, Savannah coming to collect her. I turned off the feed and poured myself another scotch, the weight of what was happening settling heavily on me. Despite everything, there was no satisfaction in seeing Melissa fall apart. Only sadness for what could have been, and relief that I discovered her true nature before she'd done irreparable damage. Monday morning arrived with a storm, both literally as thunder boomed over Seattle, and figuratively as I entered the courthouse to find not only Melissa and her attorney waiting, but a somber-looking Detective Grant as well. "Mr. Harper," she said, approaching me and Ben, "we need to speak before the hearing." She led us to a private conference room. "There's been a development. Ms. Harper filed a police report yesterday alleging domestic abuse and financial coercion." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "That's completely false. I assumed as much based on our previous conversation," Detective Grant said, her expression neutral. "However, we have to investigate all claims. She has photographs of bruises and witness testimony from her friend Savannah Carter corroborating her story." Ben interrupted. "Detective, my client has video evidence from his home security system that would disprove any claims of abuse. We were planning to present this at today's hearing." "That's what I wanted to discuss," she replied. "Ms. Harper's attorney is arguing that any such recordings were made without her knowledge or consent and are therefore inadmissible." "That's ridiculous," I said. "There are clearly visible cameras throughout the house. She knew they were there. I had them professionally installed with documentation." Detective Grant nodded. "That documentation would be helpful. Also, Mr. Harper, there's something else you should know. We subpoenaed the records from the attempted wire transfer. The account it was being sent to is in the name of Savannah Carter, not Melissa Harper." Ben and I exchanged looks. "So she's claiming she had nothing to do with it?" I asked. "Essentially, yes. Her story is that Ms. Carter acted alone, possibly accessing Mrs. Harper's devices without her knowledge." "That's convenient," I muttered. The detective's professional demeanor cracked slightly as she leaned forward. Off the record, Mr. Harper. These kinds of cases can get very messy, very quickly. If you have evidence, make sure it's bulletproof. With that warning, she left us to prepare for the hearing. Inside the courtroom, Melissa sat with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s named Elaine Montgomery, known for representing wealthy wives in high-profile divorces. Melissa had styled herself differently today. Minimal makeup, conservative clothing, hair pulled back simply. Gone was the flashy, confident socialite. In her place sat a woman who looked vulnerable and frightened. Judge Harmon, a stern man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair, called the court to order. This is an emergency hearing regarding asset freezing in the matter of Harper versus Harper, he announced. I've reviewed the initial filings. Mrs. Harper's counsel is alleging financial abuse and coercion, while Mr. Harper's counsel alleges attempted fraud and theft. Let's begin with Mrs. Harper's side. Elaine Montgomery rose smoothly. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to escalating financial control and emotional abuse throughout her 5-year marriage. Recently, Mr. Harper unilaterally cut off her access to marital funds, leaving her destitute and dependent. When she attempted to access what was legally half hers, he retaliated with false accusations of theft and fraud. Melissa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I had to admit, she was giving an Oscar-worthy performance. Furthermore, Montgomery continued, Mr. Harper installed surveillance equipment throughout their home without proper notification to my client, violating her reasonable expectation of privacy. Any recordings he obtained are therefore inadmissible under Washington privacy laws. Judge Harmon turned to Ben. Counselor Walsh, your response. Ben stood. Your Honor, we have documentation proving that the security system was professionally installed with clear visibility throughout the residence. Mrs. Harper was well aware of its presence. As for the financial allegations, Mr. Harper has bank records showing that Mrs. Harper attempted to transfer $250,000 from a business account to which she had no legal access, to an account belonging to her friend, Savannah Carter. Objection, Montgomery interrupted. There's no evidence my client initiated that transfer, only that it came from a location where multiple people were present. Your Honor, Ben countered, we have video evidence showing Mrs. Harper photographing financial documents and passwords from Mr. Harper's office, as well as recorded conversations where she explicitly discusses her plans to, and I quote, take him for everything he's worth. The judge looked at Montgomery. Counselor, did your client have knowledge of the recording devices in the home? Montgomery conferred briefly with Melissa, who whispered urgently in her ear. Your Honor, my client says she was aware of some cameras for security purposes, but had no knowledge they were recording private conversations or that they were in personal areas of the home. The cameras were installed by SecureTech Systems, I interjected, unable to remain silent. They provided written documentation of camera placement that Melissa signed. Judge Harmon gave me a stern look for speaking out of turn, but turned to Ben. Do you have this documentation, Counselor? Ben nodded and approached with a folder. Yes, Your Honor. Page 3 contains Mrs. Harper's signature acknowledging the camera placement throughout the residence, excluding only bathrooms and bedroom areas. The judge reviewed the document, then looked up at Melissa, who had gone pale. Mrs. Montgomery, it appears your client was indeed aware of the recording devices. I'll allow the video evidence. What followed was 30 minutes of damning footage. Melissa raging about cutting me off once she'd bled me dry, her conversations with Savannah about how to access my accounts, her photographing my financial documents, and, most devastating, her coaching Savannah on what to say to police if it came to that. He's big, right? Melissa had said on the recording. So we say you saw him intimidating me physically. Not hitting? That's too hard to fake. But looming over me, blocking doorways, that kind of thing. Textbook intimidation. By the time the videos finished playing, Melissa was slumped in her seat, and her attorney looked grim. Your Honor, Ben said, we also have evidence that Mrs. Harper has been collaborating with Ms. Carter to file false police reports, as you've just seen. Detective Rachel Grant of the Seattle Police Department is investigating these matters, including the attempted wire fraud. Judge Harmon's expression had grown increasingly severe throughout the presentation. Mrs. Montgomery, does your client wish to respond to this evidence? Montgomery conferred with Melissa, who was now openly crying. Real tears this time, I suspected. Your Honor, in light of this new information, we request a brief recess to confer with our client. Granted, 20 minutes. As they left the courtroom, Ben turned to me. They're going to try to cut a deal. Elaine Montgomery doesn't like losing, and she's smart enough to see which way this is going. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Montgomery approached us in the hallway. We're prepared to withdraw the abuse allegations and agree to the asset freeze pending divorce proceedings, she said tightly. In exchange, we ask that Mr. Harper not pursue criminal charges against Mrs. Harper. Ben looked at me questioningly. I considered it for a moment. The attempted wire fraud wasn't against me personally. It was against my company, which has other partners. That's not my decision alone. As for the false police report, that's between Melissa and the DA's office. Montgomery's expression hardened. You'd really see your wife go to jail. I met her gaze steadily. She stopped being my wife the moment she tried to steal from me and then frame me for abuse. Actions have consequences, counselor. Melissa is about to learn that the hard way. The following weeks unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck for Melissa. The district attorney, armed with our evidence, charged both her and Savannah with attempted wire fraud, filing false police reports, and conspiracy. Savannah quickly turned on Melissa, accepting a plea deal in exchange for testimony. I filed for divorce on grounds of attempted fraud and malicious conduct, with Ben confidently predicting I'd retain nearly all our assets given the circumstances. Melissa's expensive attorney dropped her when it became clear she couldn't pay, leaving her with a public defender. Most of her socialite friends vanished as quickly as her credit cards. The scandal was irresistible fodder for Seattle's upper-crust gossip mill, and Melissa found herself uninvited from the very social circles she'd once dominated. The women who had once laughed along with her jokes about her personal ATM now pretended they barely knew her. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall, but I couldn't deny feeling vindicated. The mask had come off, revealing the true person I'd married, someone who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. The realization was painful but freeing. 2 months into the legal proceedings, I received a call from Detective Grant. Mr. Harper, I thought you should know that we've added charges against Mrs. Harper and Ms. Carter. Our forensic analysis of their computers revealed they'd been planning this for over a year. We found emails discussing how to maximize the divorce settlement, dating back 14 months. The news hit me like a physical blow. 14 months ago, we'd still been taking vacations together, still sharing meals in a bed, still talking about possibly starting a family. Or at least I had been. Apparently, Melissa had already been plotting her exit strategy. There's more, Detective Grant continued. We found evidence they attempted to access accounts belonging to Ms. Carter's previous husbands as well. This appears to be a pattern of behavior. You're saying my wife has done this before. Not your wife specifically, but it looks like she and Ms. Carter have collaborated on similar schemes in the past. We're reopening some previous cases based on this new evidence. I thanked her for the information, then sat in my office for a long time, staring at nothing. Part of me had still wondered if Melissa's behavior had been an aberration, a terrible lapse in judgment during a difficult period in our marriage. Now I knew the truth. I'd never really known her at all. The day before Melissa's criminal trial was set to begin, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Jackson, it's Melissa. I nearly hung up, but curiosity kept me on the line. How did you get this number? All communication is supposed to go through our attorneys. I borrowed a phone, she said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Please, just listen for a minute. I'm pleading guilty tomorrow. Congratulations on doing the bare minimum of taking responsibility, I replied coldly. I know you hate me, she continued. You have every right to. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. I'm accepting a deal. 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months, plus restitution. I said nothing, waiting for her to get to the point. I also signed the divorce papers, she said. Your terms. All of them, no contest. Why the sudden cooperation? I asked suspiciously. There was a long pause. Because you were right. About everything. I treated you like an ATM, not a husband. I got so caught up in the lifestyle, in impressing people who didn't matter, that I lost sight of what did matter. Her voice broke. I lost sight of you, Jackson. The good man who loved me even when I didn't deserve it. Is this supposed to make me feel sorry for you? No, she whispered. Nothing can undo what I did. I just, I needed you to know that I recognize what I threw away. That underneath all the designer clothes and the fake friends and the constant spending, I was just a scared, insecure woman who never felt good enough. And instead of working on myself, I tried to fill the void with things, with status, with other people's money. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy, not enough to forgive her, but enough to listen. Melissa, no, please let me finish, she interrupted. Tomorrow I'm going to stand in front of a judge and admit what I did. And then I'm going to prison, where I'll have a lot of time to think about how I ended up here. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Not because it changes anything, but because you deserve to hear it. I took a deep breath. I appreciate that, and I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Melissa. Just not at anyone else's expense anymore. I won't, she promised. Never again. Goodbye, Jackson. The line went dead, and I sat holding my phone for a long time afterward, feeling a strange mix of closure and lingering sadness for what might have been. The next day, I attended Melissa's sentencing hearing. I wasn't required to be there, but something in me needed to see this chapter close definitively. The courtroom was nearly empty, just a few reporters, the attorneys, and me, sitting in the back row. Melissa looked nothing like the confident, polished woman I'd married. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a simple dark suit that had seen better days. Her hair lacked its usual perfect styling, and her face, without its usual expert makeup, showed the strain of the past months. When given the chance to speak before sentencing, she turned to face me directly. Jackson, she began, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I got lost in a world where appearances mattered more than substance, where what we had was never enough. I convinced myself you owed me a certain lifestyle because I couldn't face the emptiness of my own life. She wiped away tears. I know it's too late for us, but I want you to know I recognize what I threw away. Not the money or the house, but a good man who would have given me the world if I just appreciated what that really meant. I sat stone-faced, not giving her the satisfaction of a response. Her words might have been sincere, but they came only after she'd been caught, exposed, and faced consequences. Too little, too late. The judge sentenced her to 3 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 months, plus 5 years of probation and restitution payments to my company for legal fees and damages. Mrs. Harper, the judge said sternly, the court takes a very dim view of attempted fraud, particularly when combined with false allegations against an innocent party. You not only attempted to steal a significant sum of money, but you also attempted to destroy your husband's reputation and potentially his freedom with false accusations of abuse. Such actions diminish the credibility and undermine the cases of genuine victims of domestic violence. As they led her away in handcuffs, Melissa looked back at me one last time. The makeup she'd carefully applied for court was streaked with tears, her shoulders slumped in defeat. In her eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before from her, genuine remorse. I met her gaze steadily, then turned and walked out of the courtroom and out of her life for good. 1 year later, the new office of Harper Construction overlooked Elliott Bay, the expanded headquarters a testament to how well the company had done in the past year. Freed from Melissa's financial drain, and with my full attention back on the business, we'd secured 3 major contracts and expanded into sustainable building practices, a move that had earned us both profits and positive press. I was reviewing blueprints when my assistant Diane knocked on my door. The foundation called, she said. They need final approval on the scholarship criteria. I smiled. Tell them it looks good. Just make sure it specifically mentions that the scholarships are for vocational training in construction trades, with priority for candidates from disadvantaged backgrounds. After the divorce was finalized, I'd used part of the settlement to establish the Harper Foundation, focusing on helping young people learn trades like carpentry, electrical work, and plumbing, skills that had been the foundation of my own success. It felt right to create something positive from the ashes of my marriage. Will do, Diane said. Oh, and your dad called. He wanted to know if you're still coming up to the cabin this weekend to help with the roof. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. At 66, my father still insisted on doing most repairs himself, but had grudgingly accepted my help with the bigger projects. Our relationship had only strengthened through the ordeal with Melissa. Later that evening, as I sat on the balcony of my new downtown condo, smaller than the Lake Washington house but more to my taste, modern, practical, with no wasted space, I received an unexpected email from the Washington Correctional Center for Women. It was from Melissa. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won out. "Jackson," it began, "I'm writing to let you know that I'm being released next month on parole, 1 year early for good behavior. I've completed my GED while here and have been accepted to a business administration program at Tacoma Community College. I've also been leading financial literacy workshops for the other inmates. I don't expect a response, and I promise I won't contact you again. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to rebuild my life the right way this time, through my own work and effort, not by taking from others. The woman you married no longer exists. In her place is someone who will spend the rest of her life trying to atone for her mistakes. I heard about your foundation from a newspaper article someone sent me. It sounds amazing. You always were a builder at heart, of structures, of businesses, of opportunities for others. I wish you every happiness, Jackson. You deserve it more than anyone I've ever known. Melissa." I closed the email and looked out at the Seattle skyline as dust settled over the city. A mix of emotions washed over me. Relief that she seemed to have genuinely changed, satisfaction that justice had been served, and a quiet gratitude that I'd found the strength to stand up for myself when it mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma Williams, Derek's wife, who I'd been seeing casually for the past few months. "Still on for dinner tomorrow. I made reservations at that new Thai place you mentioned." I smiled and texted back a confirmation, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with designer labels or social status. Emma was successful in her own right, passionate about her work saving children's lives, and refreshingly straightforward about what she wanted and needed. The lessons of my marriage to Melissa had been brutal but necessary. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value substance over appearance, and to recognize the difference between someone who wants what you can provide and someone who wants to share in what you build together. I thought of Melissa in her prison cell, stripped of her designer clothes, her social status, her financial security, all the things she'd valued most. She'd lost everything in her desperate attempt to take what wasn't hers. Now she would have to rebuild her life from nothing, just as I had done years ago, with a used pickup truck and a toolbox full of dreams. The difference was I'd built mine with integrity, with honest work and genuine relationships. Melissa would have to learn to do the same, the hard way. I turned from the balcony and went inside to prepare for a meeting the next morning. The past was behind me now, and the future, my future, looked brighter than ever.